Hi everyone and welcome to the channel. In today's video we're going to be doing some hardware testing, mainly motherboards, CPUs, graphics cards, that sort of thing. Now all the hardware that we're testing today, I covered this in an unboxing video a few months back on the channel. I'll put a link down in the description as usual, so check that out if you want to see where this lot came from. But it's just going to be a quick video, quick testing really. I'm not looking to sort of test these things in any sort of detail. I just want to see that things sort of get to the BIOS screen, you know, things post, everything presents as working, you know, as it should at that point. I'm really looking for anything that's completely dead with no hope of, you know, reviving it or anything like that. So all that lot can be gotten rid of and sent to e-waste. So I've got the first motherboard on the bench and connected up. This is a QDI Legend V or Legend 5, however you pronounce it. It's an Intel chipset board. Now I think this is the Intel LX chipset. The North bridge is down here, but it looks like at some point in its life it's had something glued to it, which has since been removed, but all the residue of the glue is still, you know, absolutely baked on there, and I can't remove it, and I can't read the lettering off it. So as long as this works, we'll see what it says it is when it gets to the BIOS. It's a slot 1 motherboard. It came with this CPU on, which is a Pentium 2. So we'll see if that works too. And it also came with this memory installed. So we'll test all three things at once. It's got a PC66 sticker on one side, this RAM, and a PC100 sticker on the other side. So no idea what it is really. Again, we'll find out if it works. So we've got a power supply connected to it, we've got keyboard and mouse plugged in, we've got just a few these switches on, you know, for the front panel, so we can turn it on and off nice and easily. The graphics card's one of mine that I've put in, that's a Matrox Mystique, that's all working, so if we don't get anything out of it, the graphics card shouldn't be the issue. So without further ado, let's have a look at this first motherboard and get it switched on. Okay, power supply on, and we're getting one long continuous beep. It's not the best of starts, is it? Right, I checked the award BIOS beep codes and plugged the little PC postcard in just to confirm, and one long continuous beep, that suggests RAM problem. So we'll just start by bobbing this stick out and we'll give it a reseat. All the contacts look fairly clean on there. Doesn't look like there's any corrosion or anything like that. Can't see anything obvious, so we'll bob it back in and try it again. Oh, there we are, look at that QDI logo. That looks like we just had a bit of a bad contact there on the RAM. Maybe it just wasn't quite seated properly during transit or something like that. But that looks like it's working. We're into the BIOS. Let's see what we've got. Right, so just looking in the CPU part of the BIOS, the Speed Easy CPU setup, whatever that is. We've got a Pentium 2 at 233 MHz, which, if you watch my last video on the IBM PC300GL, I was after one of these, so that's worked out quite nicely. Have a look at that one if you want to see why that was the case. We've got all 32 megabytes of his RAM showing up as well, so that's good. Although unsurprisingly the time is out by you know, a week or two, shall we say. Give it a quick reboot again. I like that logo, I've never seen that before. It's quite snazzy compared to the normal sort of post screen. Yep, just confirming everything, just in the little table at the top, Pentium 2, 233. Everything looks good, right. So after that ominous beginning, that's all worked out okay. Let's move on to the next one. Oh, and just before we do, just to confirm, it is the LX chipset on here. It's not one of the Intel chipsets I'm particularly familiar with, and likewise online, the BX chipset tends to be the one that a lot of people go for. I think that was the more performance sort of orientated chipset, but looks like I'll have to do a bit of digging into this one now. Anyway, moving on. Just jumping in during the edit, and the LX chipset can be thought of as the predecessor to the BX chipset. The main difference between them was that the LX only officially supported bus speeds up to 66 MHz, whereas BX supported both the 66 and 100 MHz bus speeds, and they were on both the RAM and CPU. Other than that, they're pretty much identical, so it's no surprise that the BX chipset with those higher bus speeds is the one that a lot of people go for. Right, moving on to something which is, relatively speaking, much more modern than that first board. We've got an Acer N1996. I think this is from their Aspire line of desktop PCs. Intel chipset again, and this is how it came to me with the CPU and cooler already installed. So I've got no idea what's under there. Might be a Core 2 Duo or something like that. No graphics card plugged in this time, since we've got graphics built into the Northbridge chip. Well, I guess it's not Northbridge anymore, is it? But graphics chip under there. I think it's like a GeForce 4MX, something like that. But we've got an AGP slot, 3 PCI, and then there looks like an edge connector down here, which looks like a PCI slot. So maybe that allowed more PCI connections, elsewhere, or I don't know, maybe they were using that for something else. So just got to bob a stick of RAM in, and then we'll switch this one on, see what we got. Quick note, before I decided to grab some RAM to put in, I thought I'll just switch the power on, see if it does anything at all. I mean, even without RAM, I'd at least expect the CPU fan to spin, power supply to come on, beep, error code, that kind of thing. Absolutely nothing at all from this. It looks like it's dead as a dodo. I will grab some RAM, put some in, and just double check. But I'm not going to waste any more video time on this if it doesn't work. I'll drop it in the edit at the end, but not got high hopes for this one, so let's move on to the next. Right, next up on the bench we've got the Asus A7V-400MX motherboard. It's already got a CPU and heatsink installed, so don't know what that CPU is, and it came with this stick of RAM in as well. It's based on the VIA KM400A chipset. It's got a built-in VIA Unichrome graphics on here, so no need to plug a separate graphics card in. Not a particularly well-remembered, graphics chip as I recall. No doubt fine for a sort of integrated motherboard like this, but not a 3D killer. It wasn't going to challenge Nvidia or ATI or anything like that. So we've got us connected, we've got power connected. Let's switch on and see what we've got. Fans are spinning. Well, felt like that took 2 attempts, but we've got there. And into the BIOS. Excellent. So we've got an Athlon XP at 1500 MHz, so what was that, the 1800 plus, something like that, I think? Yep, oh, and 256 meg stick, which, just looking at the label, that all ties up. So yeah, nice easy one. This all seems to be working absolutely fine. CPU, RAM, motherboard, all check out. Only small fly in the ointment, I think I mentioned this in the first video. There is a leaky capacitor, that one right there. So quite how stable this would be, or usable long term, I don't know. Not unexpected on these boards, capacitor plague. This is right in the middle of when we start to see that, sadly. But recapping this, that wouldn't be a problem. So yep, so far so good. Thumbs up. Let's switch this one off and move on to the next. Right, next up we have an AOPEN AK33 motherboard with a Duron 750 MHz CPU on it. I know that because that's all the bits that came on this one, so I've put the cooler on myself. I've got the stick of RAM from the Pentium 2 that we saw earlier, so we know that's good, and then we've got the same graphics card and post card in there. Another VIA chipset on here. Not sure which one off the top of my head, maybe a KT133 or something like that. Let's get it switched on and find out. That fan's really loud, apologies if you can hear it. But straight into BIOS and everything seems to be working. So yeah, there we go. Another easy one. Duron 750. Running as we'd expect. To check some error, no doubt the battery's flat, that's fine, not worried about that. Yep, everything looks present and correct. That was worryingly easy as well. Right, what we got next? Okay, next up we have the mystery motherboard from the first video, from the only manufacturer that it seems is frightened of silk screening its own name on the motherboard. So in that first video I looked and looked, cannot see a manufacturer's name or model number on here. From a lot of googling of pictures in the meantime, I think, and it is only I think at this stage, I'm not certain, I think this is a DFI AD77. If that's right, this will be another VIA KT400 chipset. We've got a socket 462 on here. It's got an Athlon CPU of some description in. I've put the heatsink on myself and put the RAM in myself. So again here, we're just looking at the motherboard and the CPU. They've also been very economical with their silk screening of the front panel connectors. So might need one or two attempts just to, you know, if we haven't got the power switch in the correct place. But let's give it a go, see what happens. Okay, we've got an unknown CPU type at 800 MHz. That's clearly wrong, no idea what's happening there. Apologies, I seem to have picked the loudest fan and heatsink again. I don't know, I keep picking the loudest ones out the box, but anyway. You may be able to see down here KT400A chipset, that's what we thought. Don't think the BIOS is going to tell us a whole lot more. Smart setting, can it do that? Current CPU frequency is 800 MHz. I don't think it is. So this CPU ID of 0680 suggests it's a Barton Cord AMD Athlon, which ties in with what I saw before I put the heatsink and fan on. No idea why it's not picking it up as the correct speed. I would expect the speed to be set correctly by the BIOS. I can't see any jumpers on here, and to be honest, even if there were some, they probably wouldn't bother telling you what the settings are anyway, so, you know, nothing lost there. So this one I think is a little bit tricky. The motherboard seems to be working, but I can't find a manual for this. If anybody's got or knows where I can see a manual for a DFI AD77, not the AD77 Infinity, looking at pictures, that's a different board to this. But it'd definitely be good to have a browse of the manual if there's one anywhere, you know, floating about for it, just to see what's going on with this. Since I can't do that right now, just a little unsure on this CPU. I think it would be worth just dropping in one of the other motherboards just to double check that it is working as it should be. So yeah, I'd say this is probably working, this motherboard, but probably wants you know, a bit more thorough testing after I can, you know, have a read through the manual. But we're not going to get into that now. Let's just move on to the next thing. Right, next up, the first graphics card. It's an ATI Radeon VE. Just a quick test. Let's see if we get a picture. Does not like that. I'll just reseat it, make sure there's nothing wrong with the slot or anything like that. It looked fine before I put it all in. Oh, yep, working this time. Maybe just wasn't seated correctly, or perhaps some corrosion on the contact, something like that. Right, that graphics card's good. On to the next one. Next graphics card, the good old Vanta TNT2 M64. Now this has got a big black cross on the back, not drawn by me, drawn by whoever had it previous. So let's see if the black cross of doom means anything. It's given us a picture, if nothing else, so seems okay. Right, back in the bag. Next one. This one is an NVIDIA FX 5200. The low-end card from the time. It's got a black cross on the back again. No error beeps, but no signal either. Let's double check it all. Yep, it's all plugged in okay. We'll try again. Not looking good. Well, looks like that black cross is telling the truth this time. That card appears to be dead. Okay, next we've got a GeForce 2 MX400. Now, there's a little bit of corrosion on the back of this PCB here. I've cleaned the worst of it off, but you know, it really needs a good sort of deep clean to get rid of all of it. So let's see if it's working first before we worry about any of that. Oh, there we go. Booted up straight away. Another nice easy one. Moving on. Next up, mystery graphics card. No maker's name, no model number or anything like that on this, and obviously heatsink on the chip, so can't see anything from that. All it's got on it is a sticker saying 32 megabytes, so 32 meg AGP card, so perhaps we're looking GeForce 2, that sort of era. Let's see if it does anything. Oh yeah, it's another TNT M64. Looking at that. Interesting really, it's a completely different PCB shape, different PCB layout, etc. to the earlier M64 that we saw, but hey, it's working, all is good. On to the last one. And lastly, we are moving on to this Trident AGP card. It's based on the 3D Image 9750 chipset, copyright 1997 it says on there. I've had to go back to the AOPEN AK33 motherboard, as this has a universal AGP slot on. That card wouldn't fit in the AGP slot of the previous board. Oh, yep, there we go, just very quickly, 3D image it said on there. Do it again to see if we can catch that. I missed it this time, but yeah, working fine. Right, let's have a quick sum up and see what we've got. Okay, so after that whirlwind of testing there, 5 motherboards, 4 working, just the one failure, which was that Acer N1996 in the far corner there, and 6 graphics cards, and again, just one failure, this NVIDIA FX 5200 down here. So I'm pretty pleased with that really, given the state that some of these were in when I got them. To find, 4 out of 5 motherboards, 5 out of 6 graphics cards working, I'm pretty happy with that. So you might be seeing some of these featured a bit more on the channel in some videos still to come. It's been a sort of slightly different video this to what I've been doing on the channel, been a bit more, you know, off the cuff, a bit sort of more rough around the edges, but you know, since I was testing these anyway, I thought I may as well film it and then I could sort of bring you along, you can see what I've been up to with them. But I hope you still enjoyed it. If you have, give us a thumbs up or leave us a comment below, all that kind of good stuff. But for now, I'm just going to say thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.